Welcome to the Sheff United Way. My name is Hal. Today's guest, a former Blades defender who scored a memorable goal on a memorable night. It is 𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗏𝗂. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Obviously, the news has just come out about my retirement, so I'm just getting used to the changes in my life at the minute, but I'm enjoying it at the moment.
Am I right in thinking that you officially announced your retirement on your birthday?
Yeah, I did, because I wasn't too sure what I was going to do, really. Obviously, it was quite a touchy situation for me personally and my family, so it was kind of like my missus, she was kind of egging me on to put it out there so that people can kind of recognize my career that I've had, because I didn't really see it as that. I seen it as the opposite. I've had to finish early and was kind of looking at it negatively until once I put that post out, the amount of support I got and people reached out and stuff. It was amazing, and now I've actually started to think I've had a decent career.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But you are still young, and I think that's why people will have initially thought of sadness when they've
Yeah,
read that.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, 27, am I right? And just turned 27 as well.
yeah, yeah. That's right. Obviously, I sustained the injury in 2021, and obviously I never expected the day to come that it would retire me the injury. But unfortunately, it was just really painful, if I'm being honest. So I spoke to obviously the doctors, the surgeons, and stuff like that, and kind of their advice was that it's best that I stop playing. So once I got that news, obviously it was heartbreaking, but it's been 2 years of me kind of, or I'd say it's probably 9 months of me coming to terms with the fact that I'm going to retire. So before, obviously, I put it out there, I was already dealing with the situation that I wasn't going to be back playing. So now I think I'm kind of getting past that stage now when I've got some exciting things in the pipeline. So yeah.
Can you reveal what the future might hold?
Yeah, well, there's a few things I've done. A few podcasts with people, and then I actually got asked to go on full time with somebody whoever had done the podcast with. I can't say who. And then also
Okay.
I spoke to City, my obviously the club where I come through the academy, and they've invited me back in to do coaching, scouting, whatever it may be in terms of what I like. So I'm going to go in over the next couple of weeks and see if I like it or not. Yeah.
Well, that's really good because then you're keeping your hand in, like with the media side of things, and also with what was, of course, your first love actually on the grass.
Definitely, yeah, and I think that's important. I want to stay involved in football to some capacity, and whatever that may be, whether that's agency or whether that's obviously working with the young lads at City, mentoring. I'm not sure, but I'm going to give it a go and see what I like, and then go from there.
You're in quite a unique position because you're going to be a lot younger if you do go into the coaching route than a lot of other coaches. So I think younger players will probably listen to someone that has definitely got things that they can relate to. And they'll, of course, be speaking to someone who's very recently played at the very top level.
Yeah, definitely, and obviously I know what it takes to get there, coming from City and things like that. So for me, it's trying to give back now to the younger lads that are going to go through the same situations that I've been through, whether that may be loans or transfers or whatever it may be involving football, because there's a lot that goes on that fans don't see and things like that. So it would be nice to give back to them and hopefully can help them on their journey in football, and whether that's, like I said, whatever that may be. But there's also the negative side to it in terms of your injuries and stuff like that. Like I've been through that. I've been through situations with my family and passings and stuff. So I think it'll be good to give back to the young lads. I think that's the one thing that does excite me, is that kind of mentoring title. So hopefully, yeah, we can get the ball rolling with that.
I watched a video that you did. It's on YouTube. It's when you were a young player at Manchester City. It was about 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And obviously that video is talking about a prospect and the future for you. And I was wondering if you could speak to that young 𝗂𝗂𝗏𝗂 and say something that would be useful. And also you might want then to say there's two young players about to enter the game. What would you say?
Kind of just realizing that you've got to give it everything in football, especially if you want to get to the top level. We see how much the game's grown and is growing, especially in England. You have the best players there, so to get to that elite level, you can't have a day off. When I was going into training, I was living around the corner from training. I was going to train, I was kind of leaving early and not doing the extra things that really, if I could go back, I probably would have stayed around the place a lot more. To the back end of my career, I started to do that, but I think it's vitally important that you do that from the get go, from when you first sign that professional contract or whenever you're in the academy days, just to always do extras, because you can always learn. There's always something that you can be better at. And yeah, my days at Sheffield and when I was playing at that elite level, I obviously didn't have a day off because you can't. But when I was 17, 18, it was nightclubs, things like that, that really distractions that you shouldn't be getting involved in, that I was. So to give back to the young lads, a bit of advice from me would be to, your career is only really 10 to 15 years, isn't it? So I think you've got to give everything to the game whilst you're in it, and you'll have some success, definitely.
Yeah, sort of advice I'm giving to my young nephew now, who's a very talented young footballer, and you're absolutely spot on. And also, it's not always the most talented players that go on to make it. You probably played with some lads that were like really good. I've always heard professionals say, I played with people that were better than me, but they didn't
Yeah.
make it. I
And
mean, what separates you?
I would say that's me. There's a lot more talented players, but I was about 18, I'd say, and I come off the back of a loan at Bury, and it wasn't the best loan. I picked up an injury, and I went back to City, and I was like, I've got to get my head down here. I've kind of worked from 11 years old when I first joined City, and even before that, to get to this point. So I can't just let it go now. I've got a little bit of money or whatever may be the situation. I'm at City. So yeah, I just really got my head down, and I just thought I want to give this absolutely everything and give myself the best chance. So every day on the training pitch, I was leaving it all out there, and I think that's one thing a lot of players will say about me. Like, on the pitch, I give everything, and I was just an honest lad. I wasn't the best technically, I wasn't the best footballer, but I just always give everything. And with a bit of talent that I obviously had to get to the level I got to, once you put them two together, you've got a good chance of getting somewhere.
Yeah, and from Bury, you also had another loan spell at Oldham Athletic, where from what
Yeah,
you've just said, sounds to me like it all then clicked, because I think it
yeah,
was 2018, you won the Young Player of the Season award.
yeah. Well, that season was obviously one of my best in football in terms of the amount of games I played and stuff like that. But that club, I really got a connection with. It was probably the closest club locally to me that I could play for. I had a few mates that was there. I had Jack Byrne, who was on loan from City, who obviously I played with early on in the days, and he was a great player. We had Anthony Gardner, who'd obviously been Anthony Gerrard, that was obviously an experienced pro, and he really helped me. I was playing obviously beside him, left side, his centre half, and I think once you get them 10 games under your belt, you fly in then for the season. And I think it's so important to stay injury free for them first 10 games. And the other clubs I've been at, I kind of never got that chance to have that break in terms of getting that amount of games in. And at Oldham, as soon as I got there, I just hit the ground running, and I was flying for the rest of the season. I felt like I was playing with happiness, joy. So yeah, I had a really good season. I had a really good time at Oldham.
Do you think Oldham fans saw Kean Bryan and the very best of what you can do on a football pitch?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. I'd say that is where I played my best football. I don't know what that's down to. It might be, as we just touched on, then me kind of thinking this is kind of, I need to kind of have a good season here and get as many games in my belt as possible. But I think when I signed there, John Sheridan was in charge, and I think I went in on the Friday, and on the Saturday he started me. So straight away I was off to kind of a flyer in terms of the belief, and I knew I was going to play in near enough every game that I was available. And luckily I stayed injury free until the back end of the season. We actually ended up getting relegated that season, but I was fit up until the last 4 games, and was in a bit of a relegation fight. And it was a lot of my friends and people I played with at Oldham say if I was fit, then there was no way we was going to go down. And unfortunately, I didn't make it back for them last couple of games.
But we are going to talk about, as it won't surprise you, Sheffield United, because that's where the
Yeah.
majority of my interest, and certainly people watching this, will be. And
Yeah.
I'd love to hear about how the move actually came about. What do you remember of it?
So obviously I come off the back of the loan at Oldham, so I had a fair bit of interest, to be fair, and that was kind of the first summer where I would thought, like, bloody hell, this is football, this is how transfer works. I was kind of saying to mates, oh, this club's interested, this club's interested, and Stephen Gerrard rang me, and he was at Rangers, and I went down there, and unfortunately we just couldn't come to an agreement, and got on the motorway back to Manchester and went into City, and the agent was received the phone call off Chris Wilder, and the rest is history, really. I went down the next day, and I was absolutely buzzing driving over. I was just excited just to get to such a big team, really, and kind of showcase my talents at that level. Obviously, at the time, it was just fresh from League One, really, into the Championship, and we kind of obviously hit the ground running. As you know, in the Championship, 𝗏𝗚 was amazing with me. Unfortunately, for the first 2 seasons, I kind of was in the back burner for the team. But I always go back to Jack O'Connell. I think he's one of the best defenders I've played with, and I was behind him. So it's kind of it's a tricky situation, because you want to have belief in yourself that you can get to the elite level and play in these games. But I also was honest with myself and the team. As you know, I think the defensive record in that season, the first season, was one of the best in the league. So it's hard to go knocking on the manager's door and basically say I want to be playing. But back to your point as how it come around, yeah, that's what happened. So I got in the car and went down and did my medical, and everything was fine. Went over to the stadium, and once in the stadium, I was like, wow, this is special, and I was really excited and over the moon to get the deal done.
You probably are unlucky that you were behind what many Sheffield United fans would say was the best left-sided centre-back we've ever had.
Yeah, and I can't disagree. Yeah, I think he was a very good footballer. Great man. Obviously, we used to travel in together, because obviously I'm from Manchester. So he was travelling in as well. He was living in Manchester himself at the time. So it was me, Jack, and Lunny, and Mark Duffy. And it was amazing me, because to go into a new team, especially, that was kind of my first introduction of players of that standard. Obviously, Oldham's no disrespect to Oldham, but it's a different level when you go into teams like that. And we met up in the car every day, and it was just, they made me feel at ease straight away. So going into the change room when you're driving in day in day out with these lads, it just made me feel at ease. It was good times looking back.
Yeah, you mentioned some players there. Who were your best pals at Sheffield United?
My best pals, I'd probably say that the car school group. I'd say, yeah, Jack O'Connell I was close with, which is strange considering I was kind of wanting his position. But that's why I kind of think I've got a lot of respect for him, because I understand in football, I've had it myself, when people come in to kind of challenge you for that position. And I think you just got to be honest with both of us, be honest with ourselves, and kind of just work as hard as we can on the training pitch. And it's up to the manager at the end of the day who he chooses. I was also close with Robbo. And then a few of the young lads come in that was kind of...
When you say Robbo, do you mean Callum Robinson or Jack Robinson?
Yeah, Callum Robinson. I was close to Jack Robinson as well, but yeah, Callum Robinson, I was close with him. He's still a good friend now. And then it was like the likes of Ryan, Jaden, Max Lowe, Ethan Ampadu. There was a young lads that kind of, we just had a real good bond, yeah.
That's really good to hear. And I was wondering as well, you've mentioned Chris Wilder. Now, I know that it wasn't like John Sheridan. He didn't put you in the first team straight away. I remember you had a loan spell at Bolton Wanderers as well. But what was Chris actually like as a manager to play for?
I really enjoyed my time under Chris, in terms of, even when I wasn't playing, the sessions was always fun. All lads was up for it, whether you was on the bench, not in the squads or not. And don't get it wrong, there was a few times where you're in on, because we used to have to report obviously earlier and on match days and stuff like that, and obviously train on your own. So there's a few of us that was doing that. I think it was the likes of like Kieran Freeman at the time, Leon Clark, and there was a few of us, and it was tough times. But I think with the gaffer that we had, it was always, as soon as that Monday come around or whatever the next training day was, he just made you feel like you was part of the squad again. It was a great man and management that he had. I'd have to give it to him. And also, I think Nilly was unbelievable in terms of tactically on the pitch. I feel like myself personally learnt a lot from him. The gaffer was more kind of, when it was serious time, that's when you'd see his kind of talent in terms of managing players. But on a weekly basis, it was Alan Neil that was kind of taking the sessions and stuff, and it was really fun, enjoyable. And yeah, I enjoyed my time under both of them, really.
Would you say there was a favourite boss in your entire career, a manager that you played under that you'd go to as, right, that was the best one to work for?
Yeah, I'd have to say probably Richie Wellings when I was at Oldham. John Sheridan got sacked, I think it was about maybe 6 or 7 games in, and Richie come in, and he was part of the coaching staff, so he was already there. And my agent was actually his agent. So already we kind of had a little bit of relationship, and he obviously enjoyed the way I play, in terms of he loved to play out from the back, and I was a ball playing centre half, so it kind of I fit his style of play perfectly. And even just his training sessions and stuff. And at the moment, he's doing really well with Leyton Orient. He's got some promotions already under his CB, and he's still a young coach that's up and coming. So I think he's one to look out for in the future. I think he'll have a good career in management.
Yeah, and you got that Manchester connection as well.
Definitely, yeah. And I think for me, it was important at the time. I was obviously a young lad coming out of City, and he would pull me to a side sometimes and just kind of say, listen, kind of just enjoy your football. I think you need to play football with a smile on your face. And I think that means a lot. I think there's a lot of times over my career where I've played football and I've not been happy, and that result, or should I say, that kind of goes onto the pitch with you.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Whereas when I was at Oldham, I could feel that happiness inside me every day going to train, and it was a good place to be around.
It's interesting though, because that, as you've said, was for Oldham Athletic, as you mentioned, they got relegated. You also played for a Sheffield United team that did not go through our best results, and you also played at a terrible time in terms of football, because you were playing in empty stadiums for some of the time that you were at Sheffield United, and I can only imagine what that was like. What was it like playing in empty stadia during a pandemic?
For me, if I'm being totally honest, my immediate reaction to that question is I wasn't really that bothered, because I'd been through such a tough 2 years of not playing football. I was playing in the Premier League. That was my dream. So I didn't really think of it as, the only thing I do think of the goal at Old Trafford, that was full, and I had my family in the stands and stuff. I think it's a completely different situation. But I also think, on the other hand, if that's a full Old Trafford, we might have never got that result, because you can imagine what their fans would have been like going 1-0 down to Sheffield United at home. The place would have erupted. So I think you got to look at it from both views. But yeah, me personally, I was just over the moon just to be playing football in the Premier League. So I didn't really think too much into the stadiums and wearing masks walking into stadiums and stuff like that, and getting changed in different changing rooms. But there was strange times for everybody. But I'm just obviously happy, and I think everyone else happy, that we're kind of out of them times and we've moved forward.
I do want to talk about your debut, because that, obviously, as you said, it was the dream for you to get to the pinnacle, which is in England, the Premier League. Your debut, 28th of November. I think I'm right in saying 2020, away, West Bromwich Albion.
Yes, that was my debut, yeah. And just amazing memories looking back now. And I think that's when I go back to me not really wanting to say that I've retired. When I look back now at kind of them days and stuff, it's the build up of that week. My focus was on a different level that I've kind of probably never got to, in terms of everything was just football in my head. I was just thinking about kind of getting through the game and just giving my best in a Sheffield United shirt. And I think I did okay. I was obviously playing a kind of a bit out of position. I was playing left wing back. But yeah, I was just over the moon to get my Premier League debut, to be fair, and feel like I was involved with the lads. And I think that was kind of the first time I'd felt fully involved with the squad, in terms of I'm part of it and I'm going to try and give me all to keep this club in the Premier League.
I seem to remember we lost 1-0 but played really well.
Yeah, we did. We had a few opportunities. Actually, one come from me. I whipped a cross in, and Sam Johnson obviously ended up playing with when I went to West Brom, but he made a worldie save from a header off Ollie Burke. I don't even remember it. But yeah, it was a tight game. So I think if you go into a game and it's your debut and you lose 4-0, I think you're not going back in the team, are you? But I did okay, and I'm guessing I did okay because I went on to play, obviously, games that season.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Ollie Burke, and he's a figure in football which I think maybe has been unfairly, it could be possibly said, ridiculed sometimes, because he has gone for big transfer fees. And when he first burst onto the scene, he was someone that was heralded as being a future superstar, and hasn't quite worked out like that. But I think you probably saw, and I think Sheffield United fans also saw, moments where you could tell that Ollie Burke, technically and with his pace, there's a real player in there. Did you find that when you were certainly training with him?
100%, and I forgot to mention him in the group of the young lads that I was close about at Sheff, and he was one of them. Great lad, and I think people have this opinion of Ollie just because maybe he dresses different and he has this kind of lifestyle off the pitch. But I think on the training pitch and come games, when he was on it, Ollie was a big problem for any defence. I think his pace is blistering, and obviously I know him on a personal level, so I'd seen him in training and stuff, and he's one of them players you'd want on your team, because you don't want to be defended against that pace day in, day out. He's athletic, he's ripped, he's got everything to be that perfect winger kind of thing, I'd say. And unfortunately, the Sheffield United shirt, that didn't really go to plan. But it's a tough club to play for, because I think the pressure to play for Sheffield United is, it's a big expectation, and once you're in at Bramall Lane, you've kind of got to give everything to get a performance. Otherwise, the fans aren't going to be happy. And I agree with them. They've got to expect everything from the players.
Yeah, I think with Blades fans, we always just want to see 100%, and if you give 100%, we will often forgive. Certainly, in some cases, lack of ability. There are some Sheffield United legends that have definitely not been the most technically gifted footballers. It is how it works. And some players, you feel like they're giving everything and it's just not happening. And you get that. And occasionally it can just be environment. And you probably found like you can't put your finger on it. Why did it work at this club and not at this club? I gave as much, I feel, at this club, but it just didn't quite click. And I mean, at Oldham, you probably never put your finger on exactly why for you it works. And there'll be players that look back at their time at Sheff United and say the same thing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the shame for me. Obviously, I left Sheffield United, obviously, kind of, I would say on good terms in terms of playing the amount of games I played in the end in that final season. Obviously, it was relegation season, so it wasn't the best. But for me personally, anyway, I was kind of happy that I just give something little back in my 3 years there. But I was just a bit gutted, really, because I had that same feeling when I was playing that I had at Oldham in terms of my happiness and stuff was back. And it was a very family-run club, Sheffield, I'd say. I really loved my time there, and it wasn't until I left that I realised how much of a good club it is in terms of how well ran the club is in terms of kind of player liaisons and all the staff around the kitchen staff. It was really just a togetherness, and it was a really nitty-gritty place in terms of quite old school, but that's what I loved, and I think I could have really connected with the club if I would have stayed a bit longer. Obviously, things wasn't meant to be, but yeah, I really did enjoy my time at Sheffield, I have to say, looking back now.
Yeah, we always think of United as a family club, and that's I think you've just summed it up. So we've only touched on it, but Old Trafford. I mean, I mentioned it in my introduction. Was that night at Old Trafford one of, if not the career highlight?
100% it is. I've got a big picture in my house of me celebrating that goal. And it will never go. I still show my kids now on YouTube. Now I've finished, and I kind of looking back on my career. I've always typing my name and just having a look at the goal itself. And I think it just makes it so much better that we actually went there and won. It's quite a story, isn't it, for Sheffield United, especially the place we was in at the time to go to Old Trafford, because at the time they was kind of, I think if they won, they'd have gone top of the league that day. So to go there and to get a result and get 3 points, and then obviously to score, it was just like what dreams are made of. It was kind of meant to be. I'm a United fan personally. All my family are. So my phone, as you can imagine, after that game was just like, it was just, I couldn't, there was just so many messages that I couldn't get around to everyone. I was just on a real high for the rest of that week. And then obviously the next game was City. But I actually had a real bad dead leg from the game at Old Trafford. That's actually why I come off. But I was gutted that I couldn't play in that game at City, because obviously that was the team I'd kind of come from. So I really wanted to play in that as well. But obviously things wasn't meant to be. I tried my best to get fit for that game, and I made the bench, but the gaffer just said kind of don't risk it, kind of we need you. And even that was in itself was kind of, I was like, Jesus, this is a change in times. It's not been like this at Sheffield for me. So that was kind of when mine and the gaffer's relationship started to get better, I'd say.
What a goal, number 29. I mean, the pink shirt, I've got it behind me, but not necessarily my favourite. And then wheeling away, I think it was a knee slide. Did you plan anything?
Well, yeah, I did actually, because I just had my little boy, or he was about 6 or 7 months old. So I had my little boy, so I did a little suck of the thumb, and I pointed to the sky, because obviously I'd lost my mum. So it was kind of, when I look back now, to think that in that moment of all that rush of, however you want to call it, scoring at Old Trafford, a lad from Manchester, all my family support United, played at City. It was just what dreams are made of. So when I look back now and I see the celebration, I think I'm actually happy I got to show people what that goal meant to me and the people that I could kind of involved in the celebration.
You're right, fairy tale stuff. It's what I've seen when
Yeah.
I was a kid. My dream would have been scoring for Sheffield United. And to be honest, I wouldn't have cared who it was against, but you got to score against Manchester United, of course, the club that you grew up supporting. So it really meant extra. And I was wondering, we speak to a lot of footballers on this, and there's almost always the same answer. And I'm going to ask you and see if you give me the same one. What position did you play as a youngster?
Well, I played my time at City. I was centre mid, and my local teams was centre mid. But for school, I played up front.
Yeah,
and I
that's the
absolutely
answer.
loved it. And I know,
Everyone says striker, don't they?
And yeah, but played up front for every game for school, and there was some games that score 5 and 6, and it was ridiculous. We actually played in the English schools finals at the Etihad, funny enough, and I scored a hat trick. We got beat 4-3, but we played a team from London who had Jeremy Bogle in the team. I'm not sure if you know Jeremy Bogle, who was at Chelsea. So they had a good side, and I was like the star player for my team. He was the star player for their team, and I kind of outshone him, and I was playing up front, and it was unbelievable. Looking back, that was scoring goals how I was to end up as a defender anyway.
I'm pretty sure Jeremy Bogle played for Birmingham City against Sheffield United, and I think he might be one of the players right at the start of the season that I went, wow, he's a player. But then as I get older, my memory's getting worse. So if I've got that wrong, people will certainly let me know.
Yeah,
that's for sure. But you mentioned him, so it actually leads me beautifully on to the next question I've planned, which was, who's the best player you've ever played against?
When I had this conversation with friends, because my friends always like to ask me these kind of questions, I'd say the presence. I'd have to say Paul Pogba. I remember he was in the corner and he put his arm on me, and I just felt a different sort of strength in terms of it made me feel like a little boy kind of thing. I'd have never really felt that in football. And I don't know whether that's because obviously I've watched him and he was one of my favourite players kind of growing up in terms of that sixth position. But 𝗍𝗿𝗶𝗲 was the best I played with in terms of training and stuff like that. He was unbelievable at City. It was you just couldn't get near him. He was just a magician. By far the best player I played with.
It's interesting in the Paul Pogba one. I just looked up his height because according to Wikipedia, you're 6'1". I mean, is that right?
No, that's not right. I'm 6 foot. Yeah.
Okay, because Paul Pogba's listed there as just 2 inches taller than you, but you're saying like the strength is different. I mean, I'm like everyone's like that with me. It's amazing how often like Wikipedia
says incorrect. Who gave us a tough time was Neil Maupay, and I didn't like him. He was a bit feisty. He'd always like to say something back to you, and I think we got a result against BRYAN. I'm not sure, but he was just he never stopped across that back line. He was running and making different runs. He was dropping in to get the ball. He was running behind, and he had a really good game against us. But I think we did quite well against him, to be fair. So, but yeah, he was tough to play against.
Yeah, I can't remember Brighton beating us in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I know. Yeah, we just got a result against them, haven't we, as well?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that's still the case. And Neil Maupay could have been a teammate of yours because Chris Wilder apparently was quite keen on signing him for Sheffield United. And then hey, but we got Ollie McBurney, and there isn't a Blades fan who won't be thankful for that because he's become a bit of a hero. And what's he like?
Do you know what, Ollie? He's unbelievable. From the minute he walked in, he was just breath of fresh air, really. He brought a completely different kind of vibe to the changing room. He was kind of the joker around the place, but when he was one of them players you wanted on your team come a Saturday or whenever the game was. He'd fight for every second ball, every first ball. He'd give everything on that football pitch for Sheffield United and his teammates. But yeah, I'm still close to Al now. I speak to him. He's a great lad, and yeah, I got a lot of respect for Ollie. Yeah.
Will you make any plans to come back to beautiful downtown Bramall Lane when it's full, and maybe get Gary Sinclair to introduce you, and the fans can actually say thank you?
I'd absolutely love to. I've been thinking about it a lot over the past couple of weeks. I'd love to go back into Sheffield, even just to see the lads and to speak to 𝗍𝗍𝗂, because 𝗍𝗍𝗂 was really good with me as well. Obviously, when he got the job when Chris left, he was amazing, and I can see why he's kind of done well last season. Obviously, he's got off to quite a tricky start, but I think it was always going to be tough in the Premier League, especially with the amount of money people are spending nowadays. But he's a great guy, 𝗍𝗍𝗂, and yeah, I'd love to come back to Bramall Lane and listen to that 𝗍𝗍𝗂𝗍 song go. It's unbelievable. So yeah, hopefully we can get back soon and enjoy a game.
Yeah, don't worry, I won't ask you to sing the 𝗍𝗍𝗂𝗍𝗂𝗏 right now. I won't test you on that. But KEAN, BRYAN, it has been a real pleasure speaking with you, and I just want to thank you for your time. Thanks again.
No problem. Thank you.